Muhammad Ali. The greatest early life. Muhammad Ali was born as Cassius Marcellus Clay Jr. in Louisville, Kentucky, on January 17, 1942. At 12 years old, his bicycle was stolen, and in anger, he told a police officer, who was also a boxing coach, that he wanted to whoop the thief. The officer suggested he first learn how to fight, and that's how Ali's boxing journey began. Rise to fame. Ali's talent and confidence were obvious early on. By 18, he had won an Olympic gold medal in Rome 1960 in the light heavyweight division. Soon after, he turned professional and began defeating opponents with his unusual fighting style, quick footwork, lightning jabs, and constant movement, which was rare for a heavyweight. I shook up the world. The night Cassius Clay became Muhammad Ali won, setting the stage. Boxing in the early 1960s. In the early 1960s, the world of heavyweight boxing was one of the most celebrated and feared arenas in all of sports. The heavyweight champion wasn't just a title holder, he was the embodiment of masculine strength, national pride, and often political symbolism. The golden era of boxing was still in motion, with legends like Joe Louis and Rocky Marciano still fresh in public memory. But by 1960 to 1963, one name ruled the heavyweight division with an iron fist: Sonny Liston. This was a time before MMA, before global televised sports events were a click away. The heavyweight championship was the sporting spectacle. The champion was expected to be an unmovable mountain, a man who could beat any challenger without breaking a sweat. And Liston seemed to fit that image perfectly. On the other side of the boxing landscape was a young man from Louisville, Kentucky, Cassius Marcellus Clay Jr. He wasn't a humble, quiet prospect. He was loud, flamboyant, and brimming with confidence that some mistook for arrogance. At the time, most people didn't believe such a personality could survive against the monsters of the heavyweight division, especially Sonny Liston. 2. Sonny Liston, the monster of the ring. 1964. Charles Sonny Liston was the most feared man in boxing. Standing at 6 feet 1 inch with a hulking 115-pound frame, massive fists, and an 84-inch reach, Liston was built like a man designed for destruction. His story was as dark as it was intimidating: a childhood marked by poverty and abuse, time spent in prison, and rumored ties to organized crime. But in the ring, there was nothing uncertain about him. He had destroyed the popular champion, Floyd Patterson, twice, knocking him out in the first round both times. The public saw him as unbeatable. He didn't just win fights, he annihilated opponents. Sports writers called him a beast and a wrecking machine. His very presence seemed to shrink opponents. Before the first bell, when Clay became the mandatory challenger, many saw it as sending a lamb to slaughter. A brash, flashy 22-year-old talking in rhymes and dancing in the ring was going to face a stone-faced destroyer. To most, it wasn't even going to be competitive. 3. Cassius Clay's early career. Clay's boxing journey had already been impressive. Born in Louisville in 1942, he was introduced to boxing at 12 after his bicycle was stolen. Determined to learn how to fight, he trained under Joe Martin, a local police officer and boxing coach. By the time he was 18, Clay had earned a spot on the U.S. Olympic team for the 1960 Rome Games. There, he captured the light heavyweight gold medal, showcasing his lightning-fast hands, footwork, and an ability to hit without getting hit. Turning professional after the Olympics, Clay quickly amassed an undefeated record. But it wasn't just his wins that made headlines, it was how he won. He danced in the ring, kept his hands low, and peppered opponents with quick combinations while taunting them. Outside the ring, he recited self-written poems predicting the exact round in which he'd knock out his opponent. To some fans, this was refreshing entertainment. To others, especially the old-school boxing traditionalists. Clay was an arrogant kid who needed to be humbled. For the build-up to the 5 months before the fight with Liston were a masterclass in psychological warfare, but only from one side. Clay knew that if he could get into Liston's head, he could make him fight angry, wild, and out of rhythm. He taunted Liston at press conferences, called him names, and even shouted outside his training camp in Miami, "Come on out of there. I'm the champ. You're scared. Big Bear." He dubbed Liston the Big Ugly Bear and said he was so slow he would need a calendar to time his punches. Clay's prediction was bold. Sonny Liston will fall in 8, a claim that made even seasoned reporters laugh out loud. Liston, usually a stone statue in public, began to look visibly irritated. The public, however, was still convinced Clay's mouth would be shut permanently in the ring. 5. Fight night, February 25, 1964. Miami Beach. Night of the fight. Miami Beach Convention Hall was packed with 8,300 fans, plus millions more watching on closed-circuit TV across the United States. The betting odds heavily favored Liston. Round 1. Clay came out dancing, bouncing on his toes, his left jab flicking like a whip. He didn't stand still for more than a second. Liston, used to opponents freezing under his pressure, found himself swinging at air. Round 2-3. Clay continued to move, peppering Liston with quick jabs and combinations, then slipping away before the counterpunch could land. He taunted Liston mid-fight, yelling, "Is that all you got?" Round 4. Disaster nearly struck. Clay began blinking furiously, his vision impaired. Something, possibly ointment from Liston's gloves, had gotten into his eyes. For nearly a full round, Clay had to survive almost blind, dodging punches with instinct and retreating until his corner could wipe his eyes clear. Round 5-6, with his vision restored, Clay went back to work, landing sharp punches at will. Liston's face began to swell. The champion's corner looked uneasy. At the end of the 6th round, Liston slumped on his stool, muttered about a shoulder injury, and refused to continue. The fight was over. Cassius, a U.S. Clay was now the heavyweight champion of the world. At just 22 years old, 6, I shook up the world. Moment, the announcer declared him the new champion. Clay exploded with emotion. He ran to the ropes, shouting at the reporters who had doubted him, "I shook up the world. I shook up the world. I'm the greatest. I'm the greatest." It wasn't just victory, it was vindication. Clay had proven every doubter wrong, defeating the most feared man in boxing without ever being knocked down. His style, his mouth, his movement, all of it had worked. 7. The name change and conversion to Islam within 24 hours of the fight. The sports world was hit with another shock. Cassius Clay announced that he had joined the Nation of Islam and was changing his name to Muhammad Ali. At the time, the Nation of Islam was a controversial movement in the United States, advocating black empowerment and separation from white society. Ali's friendship with Malcolm X had played a major role in his spiritual journey. The name Cassius Clay, Ali said, was his slave name, a label given to his ancestors by slave owners. Muhammad Ali, given to him by Nation of Islam leader Elijah Muhammad, was his true name. Too many white Americans in 1964. This was more shocking than the fight result. Overnight, the new champion went from sports hero to a divisive political figure. 8. Cultural and political shock. America, in 1964, was in the middle of the civil rights movement. Racial segregation was still a reality, and the idea of a young black man refusing to stay in his place, especially in the conservative world of sports, was deeply unsettling to many. Ali was unapologetically proud, outspoken, and aligned with a black nationalist movement. For many black Americans, he became a symbol of strength and defiance. For much of white America, he became a villain, Sports writers accused him of being unpatriotic and a disgrace. Television commentators said he was ruining boxing's dignity, but Ali didn't care. He had the belt, the spotlight, and the freedom to speak his truth. 9. Aftermath and legacy of the fight. Ali's victory over Liston was more than an upset, it was a cultural turning point. He defended his title in a rematch with Liston in 1965, the infamous Phantom Punch fight that ended in the first round and still sparks debates today. From there, Ali's career would take even more dramatic turns, his refusal to fight in the Vietnam War, being stripped of his titles,